The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.
We're so honored to have on the show a Grammy Award-winning singer, author, podcaster, radio show. He's done it all and continues to do it all. Henry Rollins, thanks for coming on the show, Henry.
Oh, glad to be here.
You know, especially with your brand new book out now, which I know is going out hot, Stay Fanatic Volume 4.
Yeah. Which
2018.
Means, sadly, there's 3 others. Yeah.
But you know, it's so much fun because you and I were talking when we first met to where it's like, you do such a great job of curating these books for each year, and it takes so much time for you to do that. I mean,
Right.
you've had over 30 books published.
Yep.
And your fans, me included, love this because you go into such detail in these Fanatic books because you're a collector and you love this stuff.
Yeah, many years ago, I've been obsessed with, getting the promo records, the test pressing, all that crazy stuff, like eBay guy. And I wanted to make basically a fanzine from hell,
Right.
Like way too much information. And so I started writing on this project in like 2011, 2012, and I'd read it back and I'm like, that's not it.
Mm-hmm.
By 2013, I got it. And I wanted to make a book with a ton of photos,
Right.
Big format,
Yes.
about the records I collect, going to record stores, that kind of euphoria of we're going to the record store, we're going to the show.
Right.
Because I'm 63, I'm still into it. And like all these bands on the cover inside, they changed my life. I've never recovered from seeing the Cramps or the Clash,
Right.
or all these, the Bad Brains and Minor Threat.
And the artwork is amazing.
Right, and the artwork, it all captivated me. And so I got a scanner, and I hired a friend of mine from the Smithsonian to teach me databasing and scanning. And I started working on these epic books. That this one has about 700 images in it, all scanned by yours truly. And so the books are done in journal form. And so that's a year. So it's 1 year to write it. 2 or 3 years to rewrite and edit and fact check, because you've got to get the dates right, because
totally.
you'll get so called out so fast. And then to find enough images. And so I go to clipping agencies all over the world to get this press release or this thing, and I scan it up, I write about it, and I put it in the book. And so they take 1 year to write and about 3 years to build this ship in the bottle. And that's why it's 2024 now. That's from 2018, and it just came out.
Right.
And that's the time lag. And I apologize to the readers. I'm like, I know. If I had a staff, it's just me.
You're a staff of one, though, but also, we were joking before we came in studio, Henry. You're a workaholic. I mean, it's like you're not one of those, punk rocker or musician guys that just sits around, gets up around noon. You have a work ethic, and you're constantly working on your books, your radio shows, your writing,
Yep.
all day long, and then you take a break and go to the gym.
Yeah, that's the me time. and I don't do vacations. Like pre-COVID, I used to spend a lot of time, if I wasn't on tour, I'd spend a lot of time out of the United States. Not because I dislike the United States, it's my favorite place. But I just want to see the rest of the world and go live in it. And so if I'm going to be editing, like the first volume of this, I had to transcribe out of notebooks, which is, for a guy who can't type, it's a lot of drudgery. So to make it interesting, I did that in China, Taiwan, Peru, Vietnam. I just lived all over the world in a hotel, have internet, will edit. And so I just bring these notebooks out to these sweaty hotels and just punch away. And so I used to bounce all over the world and take the photos and write about music, and then COVID kind of shut me down. But even if I'm traveling, I'm working.
Right.
Like I don't sit on the beach. I'm maybe taking a photo of the beach and writing about it. But as they say, I use every part of the deer. And so if I go somewhere, I'm interviewing people, I'm filming, I'm taking photographs. I've done a lot of photography.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm also writing. And so I come back from like 6 weeks in Africa, like 18 pounds lighter, and my gear's all worn out, but I've got like, 3,000 photos, journal entries from, different parts of the continent, and digging the local music, buying records whenever I can, seeing live music all over the world.
Wow.
And so that's kind of sort of how I live my life. And so when Christmas comes around and things are quiet, I just work straight through it. And and there's nothing unique about that. A lot of people are kind of work incentivized. And for me, it's not about money. It's about not sitting still and making good on opportunities I've had in my life. I've had some cool things go my way.
Oh my gosh! I mean, you know, you and I were talking, and I was joking you when you first came in studio to where your whole career and life. I mean, your musical career, certainly with Black Flag, you know, with the Rollins Band, everything else you've accomplished, but also on TV and in film. I mean, you know, you've been in Sons of Anarchy, my favorite show, 10 Things You Didn't Know About.
Thank you.
You know, which, you know, your passion for history and everything, and then the Smithsonian and these historical places open up their doors to you, Henry, and go, come on in, we want to show you some stuff that the public never gets to see.
Yeah.
And you get to go see it.
Yeah, I've been given, you know, some really cool opportunities and a lot of access. And so I come from the American middle class. Both my parents were super hardworking, very middle class, nothing fancy, just really hard work. They're very smart people. And I come from minimum wage work into music and then kind of fell into everything else. And so my version of making good on all of that is to keep working and not take anything for granted and be respectful to everyone I meet and not get high on my own supply of me. And so I'm off tour right now. I just finished 261 shows in 28 countries. Wow. And I miss it. I'd much rather be on a tour bus. But
and your fans. I mean, you have rabid fans, Henry.
Yeah, I'm dedicated to them, and hopefully they'll be dedicated to me for at least one more go-around.
I think they will be.
But it's difficult to come back from that. And so if I have to be off the road, I prefer to be on stage every night.
Right.
That's the best thing for me.
And does the radio show kind of give you a fix also? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you've been doing that since 2009.
Yeah, I've been
KCRW.
KCRW.
Yeah, with NPR, and I mean, you get to have fun playing the music you want to.
Yeah.
You're DJing.
And like you're 28 years old like me. You remember American Graffiti?
Totally.
I saw it first run. My mom took
Oh
me
my
to
gosh,
see
one of
it.
my favorite movies. I was talking about it last night, and the soundtrack.
And which turned me on to 50s music. And so Wolfman Jack's cameo in that was transformational for me. I came back from that and I said to my mom, I want to see the movie again. And I've seen it, I don't know how many times now.
too.
And I want to know more about the music in that movie. I liked all of it, At the Hop, all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So my mom went to the record store like 3 days a week. Like she always had a record on. And so she said, well, let's find you some 50s music compilation records, which there are like golden oldies, and they had these LPs for like $3.99 in those days. It's like 1841. And so I was playing these instrumental and vocal 50s music records, but it was like, I want his job. To be a crazy guy on the radio.
Yeah.
And being in a punk rock band, you get to be on a lot of college radio stations. Like, okay, Henry's going to take over the station for an hour. I'm like, I can do this. And then I would go hang out at KCRW in the 80s, and my friend Deirdre O'Donoghue sadly passed away. She taught me how to, she goes, okay, I would just hang out with her, just watch her do the show. She goes, you're going to do the next 15-minute block. I'm like, I am? She goes, yeah. Okay, get like 5 songs together. You're going to talk about the first one. You're going to play 2, come back behind it and tell them what they heard and tell them what they're going to hear. Go. And I'm like, and you're on. And I would just do it.
Right.
And then years later, I have my own show on KCRW, sitting in the same place where I apprenticed with Deirdre in the 80s. And so I never got over that. And so Deirdre taught me how to do radio. And I'm a Deirdre clone. I just, like people say, I like your radio show. Like I just do what Deirdre taught me. But it's Wolfman Jack in my mind.
Right.
Because I just thought no one knows who he is. He's like this mysterious guy. He's got this crazy voice. And luckily for me, he was syndicated for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So even a guy in Washington, D.C. like me could find him.
Well, remember when he used to be on TV also? Was it with the Midnight Special? One of the shows to where Wolfman would come on there.
Yeah, and he has that look. I mean, he looks like the guy with that voice.
Right.
And so I was always taken by all of that. So I've had a radio show. I had a radio show for 4 years before that on another station. So I've had a radio show for quite a while.
And podcast with Heidi.
Yeah, and I love all of it. You know, it's National Public Radio. I make $22 a show.
But they let you do what you want, Henry.
And it's radio for the people, and I love the mission of NPR. I truly love it.
I do too.
And I like having a radio show because I get to, and the best letters I get about the show is from bands. Dear Henry, we just finished a bunch of shows this summer, and every single night people came up to us and said, I came to your show because I heard you on Henry's show.
Right.
So, and Henry, thank you for playing us on your show. To help some band that lives in a van, I know all about it. No one really did that for me. So for me to do it for a band, that's kind of a big part of my mission is like get the small bands over the wall and like they're great. Like get more fans in front of them.
Right.
And so I'm always looking on Bandcamp and all these I'm looking under carpets for bands, to get them on the show and get them heard by people all over the world. It's a great mission.
But also, I mean, coming up, and we were joking earlier before we came in studio about, your time working at Haagen-Dazs ice cream and all this kind of, and the pictures from that. But also, that's around the time that you broke in as the lead singer for Black Flag.
Yeah.
And so you paid your dues. I mean, and those pictures are great.
Yeah.
From the ice cream scooping days.
150 pounds.
Of fury.
Yeah. Of aggravation.
But you paid your dues to get to where you got and to where you are now.
Yeah, and in a way, I've spent my adult years paying it back. In that someone goes like, what's your superpower? Like his superpower is he always says yes. Yes is his superpower. My superpower, if I have one, is gratitude. Because it self-generates. I'm grateful that the sun came up, that my car didn't implode on the way here. I'm grateful I have a radio show. I'm grateful there's music to play on it.
New book.
Like that. Right. And that there's an audience who digs it. Definitely. And so, like a lot of performers, when they thank the audience, they're not kidding. The performers were so happy you showed up. Right. Are you kidding? Without an audience, you got no game. You're the tree that falls in the forest, unheard, unwitnessed. And so I love my audience. I'm obsessed with them. Right. And so basically I spend my days making things for them. I'm in service. This book is basically, it's fun to make it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's basically, here's something good I made you. It's like your mom making a good loaf of bread for you because she wants you to be healthy. I try to make a good radio show, write a good book, do a good talking show, do a good podcast.
And your articles for Rolling Stone in Australia.
Yeah, good writing. And I wrote for the LA Weekly for years, the LA Times. I've been printed all over the world.
And your interviews, and especially your Jerry Lee Lewis interview.
Yeah.
With MTV and with everything that you got to do back in those days.
Mildly terrifying hanging out with that guy. He's a for real legend. And a stone cold maniac.
Yeah. But you got access, Henry.
Yeah, I love that.
You got access that most people didn't get. And then when he was doing an interview for MTV, it's like he wouldn't do it with anybody else but you.
No, he asked for me.
Yeah.
And which was great.
How flattering is that?
Oh no, it was a total honor. And so how do you pay that back? You just keep doing stuff.
Right.
And again, it's never about money. Because there's never been a ton of it coming my way anyway, the kind of stuff I do. It's always like little places, a smattering of applause.
But you take care of the people around you, though, too, Henry.
Yeah. Well, I have a staff, and we work very closely, and we work very hard. And some of these people have been with me for over 25 years.
Incredible.
I've had one best friend for about 51, 52 years.
Ian
Mackay, from the bands Fugazi and Minor Threat.
Right.
He's the better man. I've been trying to be more like him all my life. I'm getting there. I'm getting a little better.
I think you're doing incredible. And for me, once again, keeping up with you, I listen to your radio show and with your books, including this one. I know you're working on forward books also. You're just a creative force of nature, and it seems like you just like to share it, Henry. And I think that comes through in from your spoken word, from your music albums, everything you've created. You just like to create and put it out there to the universe.
That's it. And as soon as you hear a good band, like, I gotta write this guy. He's gonna love that. And I keep in touch with other radio people in the world, like my buddy Michael Mulholland in Melbourne, Australia. He hears a good band, he sends me the Bandcamp link. I hear something good, I send it to him. When I'm in Melbourne, I'm on his show. If he ever gets to Nashville, he can be on my show.
Right.
Whatever. And he's a great guy, great taste in music, and I've been on his show more than once. And so it is like, get it out there and talk about it, get excited and remain curious and remain excited. And one thing I've noticed now that, I'm 28, 29, is like some people, there's people, of my age group who like we all kind of hit the starting block somewhere in the 80s and went out there and made a racket. They're becoming like their parents. Well, Henry, the bands these days, I took my son to go see a band play and they don't really put that much, like when we were doing it, I'm like, don't do it. Like, I love Frank Sinatra, but not what he said about the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Right, no.
They're like, oh, they're a bunch of noise. Like, Frank. Don't go there.
Yeah.
Because you just turn yourself into a living fossil.
Yeah, you just became your dad.
And so these people will say to me, well, these new bands. I'm like, and I say, you know what? I'll pretend you never said that. And I'll just say, independent music has never been more interesting, in my opinion, than
totally agree.
Right now.
It's amazing.
It's so good. Like the last 10 years, all these bands with their own labels, building their own studios.
Right. They're not held back.
It's truly independent music. And I buy records almost every day. Well, because I'm on everyone's mailing list, labels, and all of this. And I stay up late listening to stuff on Bandcamp. I'm like, oh, yeah. Finding out about, I just found out about a label out of China called Old Heaven. And it's all this avant classical instrumental stuff from China. I'm like, I want all of this. And it's all like super expensive. The postage will wound you.
Oh my God.
But I'm like, I can't afford this, but I want all that music. And it never ends. And so whenever everyone says, oh, I'm so bored, why?
Right.
There's great books coming out.
Oh my goodness.
And America's an amazing place to live in right now. It's a fascinating time in history. And music has never been better. And gigs happen all the time. And we live in a great city. Nashville's incredible.
And I think it spoils us.
I love it no end.
Yeah, me too.
And every third building's a gig, and all the local bands are great, and everyone's cool.
The level of talent, you know what I mean?
It's insane.
And certainly you saw that, in D.C. and when you went to LA and made a huge splash out there, and lived most of your life out there. But here in Nashville, it's like the level of talent. Everybody has to up their game.
No, you're neck deep in it. And there's just so much, and so many good venues. And I've been, going to gigs. I moved here, and I'm like, I want to go out, and I can get out there. If the gig is not later than 11 p.m.
And there's coffee.
Yeah. And I go, and we are spoiled.
Yes.
So when someone says, oh, the scene is boring, I'm like, God, you need to get outside, man.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Walk out your door.
And that's the thing, it's always been happening. You just have to remain curious. And I pity these people I know who are kind of shriveling up. Like back in my day, don't do it.
No.
Back in your day was good, but it's really good now too.
Right. And I think that's what you do so well. And I want to make sure for our viewers to be able to get their own copy. And I know if they go through the website too, Henry, they can get it signed and autographed by you also, right? The Stay Fanatic Volume 4. Are you doing that, or is that only in person?
Sorry, not on this edition. I couldn't get out because all of our merch is in Los Angeles. And this time around, I didn't get out there to sign the first edition. And so this edition is unsigned, but if you come up to me on the street and you got that book with you, I'll sign it right in your face.
Yeah, you need to be like at some of the bookstores with it too, and have them out there, and obviously when you're back on tour again.
Yeah, well, that's the best place to have the books because there's no postage,
right?
And someone can pick it up and look at it. We have one nailed to the counter, and they can get in the way. And they can see it and go yay or nay.
Right.
And there's no unknowns. And the books do really well on tour, just because, again, no postage.
Right.
They're all signed. I signed them on the tour bus in the daytime. And but this one sadly wasn't signed.
Gotcha. Well, but I want to make sure too that for your website, social media, for the radio show, everything Henry Rollins that they want to consume, and I know they want it all, where do they need to go?
HenryRollins.com. Which is kind of a no-brainer.
You would be surprised how many artists come on the show and don't have their, it's like 7 words and you have to jump around backwards.
Yeah, I keep it simple, thinking that no one's going to give me more than 20 seconds of their time. So you can't have a strange email address or a strange website name, because you've already burned 11 seconds of the 20 before they just find something else in the room that's more interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, be sure and get your own copy. Stay Fanatic Volume 4 is out now. He's already working on Volume 5.
Sadly,
Yeah.
If I could stop, I would.
You can't stop.
I can't.
And also on the radio show, check him out. It's international, and you can look at other writings and everything that Henry's doing. Also, hopefully back on tour in the near future.
I hope so. I need more. I need new material.
Yeah, we can work on that. I mean, there's some people here in Nashville. The one and only Henry Rollins. Thanks so much for
Thank
coming
you,
on
sir.
the show.
Thank you.
Check it out.
The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.